bum 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 yai dai bum 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 yai dai bum 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 bai bum bai yai dai bum 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 bai dai bum 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 bai dai bum 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 bai bum bai yum bitty bum 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 bitty bum 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 bitty bum 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 bitty bum 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 bitty bum 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 bitty bum 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 yai dai bum 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 bai dai bum 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 bai dai bum 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 yai bum bum bai yai dai bum 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 bai dai bum 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 bai dai bum 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 bai bum bai.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Rabbi Benjamin Zober, and with me is, of course,
Rabbi Sarah Zober, and welcome.
We are so glad that wherever you are, you have decided to join us as we welcome Shabbat this evening. If you are somewhere where there are wildfires or the air quality is quite poor, we hear you, we see you, our hearts go out. Please stay indoors, stay safe. If there are other things that are causing you to, other things that have taken your breath away in this week, and perhaps not in the most favorable of ways, we are also thinking of you, and we are glad that you are here for the next little while as we have this little oasis, this little palace in time where we can pray and we can sing and we can be together and begin what we hope is a day of rest and relaxation. If you have not already done so and would like to, now is an excellent time to download our virtual Siddur. It will have all of the readings and prayers and everything that we are doing tonight. If you do not want to download anything, the hard copy of Mishkan Tefillah will work for just about everything, or you can follow along from memory or from your heart. All options are welcome and anything in between as well. We begin with a reading that is on page 27 this evening. At the very bottom of the page, we read, "Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time. Even at unlikely times and through unlikely places, there is no place on earth without the presence." Now we will flip in the other direction to page 2 as we light our Shabbat candles this evening.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We continue welcoming Shabbat on page 12 with Lechu Neranana.
Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Ladonai. Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Ladonai. Naria, Naria, Letzor Yeshenu, Nekad Mapana Betoda. Naria, Naria, Letzor Yeshenu, Bizmiro Naria Lo, Lechu Neranana, Lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai.
And we turn to page 14 for Or Zarua. It is if you are in Mishkan Tefillah, it is the last of the 3 paragraphs on the page.
Or Zarua, HaTzadik, Yisrael Simcha. Or Zarua, HaTzadik, Yisrael Simcha. Or Zarua, HaTzadik, Yisrael Simcha. Yisrael Simcha. Zarua l'Tzadik Yisrael Simcha, Yisrael Simcha. Yai dai 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 yai dai dai yai dai dai Zarua, l'Tzadik, Yisrael Simcha. Zarua, l'Tzadik, Yisrael Simcha.
I like that one.
I know you do.
Now that we're feeling good, we turn to page 20 for Lechado D. As is our custom, we will be singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And if you are able, when we reach that 9th and final verse, if you would rise and turn to welcome the Shabbat bride into your midst.
Lechado di, likrat halah. B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lechado di, likrat halah. B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Yishmi'anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad, Shemo tiferet v'li tefillah. Lechado di, likrat halah. B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lechado di, likrat halah. B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu b'nei echad, Yihi mekor habracha. Mirosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tzilah. Lechado di, likrat halah. B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lechado di, likrat halah. B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hitorari, hitorari, mi ba'oref u'mi'ori, u'mi'ori, shir daveri, kevod Adonai alayim. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. Oive Shalom Ateret Bala, Gam Besimcha U'B'Tohala, Tov Emunei Am Segula, Oichala, Oichala, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela.
You may be seated. We continue together on page 26 with Chatzi Kaddish. Yitkara v'yitkara shemei Rabba,
Amen.
V'alma divrach yirute v'yamlich malchute, B'chayechon u'b'yomechon, u'chayedecho Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, u'vizman kariv, v'meru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Le'olam U'Olmei Almaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, V'yitareh, V'yitharal, Shmei D'Kudisha Berichu, Leila Min Kol Birchata V'Ashirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Tamihiran be'alma, v'meru, Amen. The Baruch Hu begins on page 28. If you are able, please rise.
Yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Barachu et Adonai HaMevorach. Barachu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai.
We continue on page 31 together at the top of the page. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. Ahavat Olam can be found on the next page.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amachavta Torah Mitzvot Chukim u'Mishpatim Otanu limad ata Al kein Adonai Eloheinu B'shovenu u'b'kumenu Nasiach b'chukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha U'lemitzvotecha Le'olam va'ed Ki hem chayenu Ve'orech yameinu U'bahem negeh yomam v'layla.
The Shema can be found on the next page.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. We continue together with the V'ahavta, page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'shokbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'hisharecha leman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emetz. We read responsively the top of page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot.
That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt. That there is a better place, a promised land. That the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness.
That there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Micha Mocha can be found on the next page.
Ya ba bim bim bam, ya ba bim bam, ya ba bim bim bam, ya ba bim bam, ya dai 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 dai, ya ba bim bam, ya dai 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 dai, ya ba bim bam. Mi amoha baini. O Sefelet, Noratilut, O Sefelet. Mahala Putrecha, Ranu Banecha, Lokea Yam Nifne, Moshe Miriam, Zeli, Zeli, Anu Ve'amaro, Adonai Imlo, Leolam Ba'ed. Yababa Bim Bim Bam, Yababa Bim Bim Bam, Yababa Bim Bim Bam, Yababa Bim Bam, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Yababa Bim Bam, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Yababa Bim Bam. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, קהל ישראל.
We continue together on page 43, in the middle of the page. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Yism'Zoom can be found on the next page.
Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Bekorei oneg, bekorei oneg. Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Mekadeshei, Mekadeshei Shavi, Kulam Yism'u ve'yitzango metuvacha, Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Bekorei oneg, bekorei oneg, Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Behashvi ratzita bo, ratzita bo v'kidasho, kamdat yamim oto karata, zecher l'maseh bereshit. Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Bekorei oneg, bekorei oneg, Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat. Yism'Zoom b'malchuta, shomerei Shabbat.
We now turn to the Amidah, but we are going to begin with something a little bit different. It will likely be familiar to those of you who are regulars at Shabbat Unplugged.
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Adonai, Svatai Tiftach, Uvi Agid, Tehilatecha. Adonai, Svatai Tiftach, Uvi Agid, Tehilatecha. Adonai, Svatai Tiftach, Uvi Agid, Tehilatecha. Adonai, Svatai Tiftach, Uvi Agid, Tehilatecha.
Turn to page 48, and if you are able, please rise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, V'zocher Chasei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Ata Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol ata Rav lehoshia, Morid hatah, Mechakel chaim b'chesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umakayem emunato, Vishenei afar, Michamocha b'gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech memit umachayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'hachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. We turn to the top of page 53. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Continue silently to page 62. Please feel free to be seated when you are done or feel ready. Oseh Shalom can be found on page 62.
Oseh Shalom Vivrama. Oseh Shalom Vivrama. Huyaseh Shalom. Huyaseh Shalom. Huyaseh Shalom. Aleinu. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. Oseh Shalom Vivrama. Oseh Shalom Vivrama. Huyaseh Shalom. Huyaseh Shalom. Huyaseh Shalom. Aleinu. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one 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 bring peace down to us.
Normally at this time, we turn to the Torah service, but this weekend, we have a very good excuse for not doing it on Friday night. That is that tomorrow morning, Evelyn Wiedemeyer will be called to the Torah as a bat mitzvah, and so she will be reading from the Torah and will be teaching some words of Torah as well. So this is your first of probably many reminders this evening that will be happening, because we hope that you will all tune in and send all of your well wishes, your mazal tovs, and good feelings and support to her across the digital divide as she reaches this wonderful milestone and moment. But at this time, it is also important for us to think of those in our community who need a bit of healing, whether it is of body, of mind, or of spirit. At this moment, we are thinking in particular of Harav Aharon Ben Tova, Wendy Alderman, Lucille Alexander, Bluma Bat Rachel Va'aria, Stanley Browdy, Neil Calder, Patrick Campbell, Megan Carney Cranmer, Elizabeth Crump, Hamida Derry, Vita Dworkin, Terry Gregory, Marlene Harris, Harvey Higdon, Harav Catriel Ben Karen, Dave Levine, Joan Nutkin, Lori Pattison, Shirley Rutkovitz, Sarah Batchava, Marianne Schenker, Monica Cecilia, the Stucker family, Jessica Wadatz, Asher Zelech, everyone affected by the fires around us this season, and everyone affected by the coronavirus, and of course, all of the names that you have shared aloud in the comments or in your hearts. For all of these folks, we offer our Song of Blessing, Debbie Friedman's Misha Berach, which can be found on page 253. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBrecha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mekor HaBrecha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. I will now turn it over to Rabbi Sarah for some words of Torah.
I am going to make a statement that may shock some of you. Our preparatory month of Elul begins Sunday at sundown. Yes, at this moment, we are only 1 month away from Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And I know that with the public schools also starting Monday, I am not the only person here feeling the crush. With the start of Elul, of course, many things change. I'd like to tell you about 3 traditions that we often forget to celebrate, but I think are more important than ever this time around. They are the shofar, the recitation of Psalm 27, and visiting the graves of our loved ones. First, the shofar. This is one of the most well-known traditions of the month of Elul, that the shofar is sounded each morning. It is meant to wake us up, to call us to attention. Usually, we think of this calling as paying attention to our souls, to making amends with one another. But this year, I'd like us to think about the shofar's call in a more specific way. I'd like us to think of this shofar as calling us to consider the world that we are currently living in. The air this morning was hazardous to breathe here in the Washoe Valley. We are still living in a pandemic where children and much of the world cannot be vaccinated. And we as a privileged society are fighting about who has to wear masks and about who needs to protect one another by getting vaccinated or not getting vaccinated. And of course, as Americans, we squabble as the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Takia! Wake up. What is it that we need to wake up to this Elul? The shofar asks us, what is the thing that we need to focus on that scares us to death? What is the thing that we have been avoiding? Our process of waking up begins in earnest on Sunday. And now, more than ever, it is imperative that we engage in it. Our second tradition is that we read Psalm 27 daily. The Psalms, as we know, are traditionally attributed to King David. One of the verses at the very end is a fragment, incomplete at both the beginning of it and the end of it. It's verse 13, and it states, Lulei ha'emanti lir'ot b'tov Adonai be'eretz chaim. Loosely translated, it says, unless I trust that I get to see the goodness of God in the land of the living. And then it trails off, only to be eclipsed by a statement of courage, disconnected from this particular worried fragment. Even more unusual, the word lulei that begins this phrase, a word which broadly means unless or were it not this way, has dots above and below it in every one of our manuscripts. The Talmud asks why these dots are there. And our sages tell us that they serve to remind us that even the great King David doubted whether he was righteous enough or doing enough good to see God's goodness in the world of the living. Psalm 27 is positioned here in a lul liturgically to break our hearts wide open. Psalm 27 is full of doubt and fear, of sadness, and of feelings of sheer abandonment. It begins confidently, almost with bravado, and then dissolves into the sobs of those who are surrounded on all sides by their enemies. But it ends with something even more important, something quiet. It ends with tikva, hope, and ometz lev, courage. I think we have need of all of that this year. Lastly, there is a custom in Elul to make trips to the graves of our loved ones. While I am happy to sanction that as a COVID-safe activity, I would like to encourage all of us to broaden our definition of what constitutes a visit to a grave. If we do a good job of waking up to the tekiyah of the shofar, we will realize that especially for the past 2 years, we have been living with graves all around us. I'm not just talking about the 4 million COVID deaths throughout the world so far. I'm not just talking about those who were killed by heat or other natural disasters. And I'm not even just talking about those whose funerals we could not attend in the last 2 years. No, I think we must also visit the graves of incomplete or remote learning. We must visit the graves of jobs lost, of security lost, of childhood pieces lost, of homes lost. We must visit the graves of our boredom and our loneliness, of the friendships or relationships that have died or atrophied, of the many days off where we worked because we saw no other choice. We must also visit the graves of the candles that we've burnt on both ends, and the graves that are the ways in which things will never go back to normal. Now, there's a secret to the month of Elul. It has a secret that is found in its name, Aleph Lamed Vav Lamed Elul. The word Elul is an acronym for an important Hebrew phrase, Ani Ladodi Vidodi Li. Found on many wedding rings and ketubot, this phrase is the romantic, I am my beloved and my beloved is also mine. And at this moment, Elul's secret is to show us that we are all interconnected with one another, that we are interdependent upon one another for our health and our happiness and our welfare. During Elul, we have a liturgical and a spiritual commandment and impetus to really see the world for what it is and our place within it, and to mourn deeply for the ways in which the world is not right and not whole. As we walk into this new month on Sunday evening, let's do our traditions practices for real this year. Let's spend less time worrying and talking about not being in person together, and more time getting honest with the ways in which we each need to wake up, to have courage, and to deeply feel all the loss that we have been through. That will be the best way for all of us, interconnected beloveds all, to step into a new year that is coming very fast, but to make it a year that is different and better than the ones that we have just lived through. Shabbat Shalom.
We turn to page 282 for Aleinu. If you are able, please rise. We are at the top of the page. Aleinu leshabeach Adon hakol, latet gedula leotzer breshit, shehu notei shamayim v'yosed aretz, Umoshavi karo b'shamayim imal, ushchina tuzo begovem romim, hu Eloheinu einod, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, livnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Page 285. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Page 287. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad. Ushemo echad. You may be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. At this time, we are remembering Henry Kronberg, David Stucker, Joe Johns, Sherwin Sider, Arthur Ashkin, Jack Robinson, Betty Williams, Pamela Walker, Barb McBrady, Mary Jane Ludwig, Inga Kaplan, Elizabeth Ruth Rassler, James Cross, Peter A. Alsberg, PhD, Eileen Jenkins, Selma Four, Steve Strauss, Andrew Varadi, Donna Matlis, Charlie Perlman, Rabbi Michael Cook, Sharon Perlman, Mildred Millie Small, Alan Dabro, William Leibovic, Jim Ballantyne, Eli Kane. And this Shabbat, we commemorate the yard sites of Frank Shabro, Belle Gray, Edith Colt, Shirley LaRose Richmond, Sandor Levinson, Louis E. Brodick, Sanford Arnold Eisenstadt, Rose G. Goldwater, Alvin Jackson, Douglas J. Green, Susan Feldman, Garo Gajarian, Gershon Rutkovitz. To those names, we add those that you have contributed in your hearts or in the comments. Kadisha Tome can be found on page 294. If it is your custom, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, v'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayachon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael, v'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnatzeh, V'hadar, v'tale, v'halal, shemei dekudisha berichu. Le'elam ninkol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all who mourn, to which we say, Amen. You may be seated. We have a few announcements for you this evening. The first is that following this service, we will be jumping onto our Yism'Zoom Oneg. There are Zoom links available. We would like to thank Laura Ashkin and Chris Stanton for being our Yism'Zoom hosts. It is a wonderful way to say hello to some of your friends and family here in the community and keep the good feelings of the Kabbalat Shabbat service going just a little bit longer. As mentioned, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time is the bat mitzvah of Evelyn Wiedenmeyer. That will be via live stream, wherever your favorite Temple Sinai events can be found. Really, she has worked wonderfully hard and has done a terrific job. So we hope that you will join us for that event. Because that is going on, we do not have Torah study. She will be the one leading us in our study of Torah. In the coming days and weeks, next week, Friday the 13th, yikes, we will also be doing Kabbalat Shabbat service. And then on the 14th, my parents' anniversary, we will be back to regularly scheduled programming with Torah study. So we hope that you will join us for that. Looking ahead on the 16th and 17th, that's a Monday and a Tuesday, our administrator, Mike, will be taking some much deserved time off. So the temple office will be closed. So if you need to get a hold of him, you will be unable. Let's let him get some peace and some rest, as he definitely deserves it. And on August 20th, air quality permitting, we will be in person outside at Las Brisas Park at 7:30 for our Shabbat Under the Stars service. It is in the northwest of Reno. We know that is not ideal for some of the folks down south, but we try to split our time so everybody has somewhere that they can go. We hope that you will join us for that. It is a lot of fun, and being as we will hopefully be able to be outside means that we can see all of you and sing. We encourage you to bring a picnic dinner, so after we finish the service, you can stay and eat and see everyone. I think those are all of the things that are on our immediate thing, with, of course, the warning that Rabbi Sarah has given all of us about the high holidays coming up. If you have not seen, we will be virtual again for the high holidays because of the COVID numbers in our community. We want to be absolutely sure that we do everything to keep people healthy. It will be a little different. There will be limited in person. It is the people who are going to be doing Torah readings and other blessings that will be in the space. Everyone will be masked for protection of everyone there, especially folks who are there who are not vaccinated, like our kids. So if you do see some people, please don't call us angrily and say, "How come you didn't let me in?" This is perhaps incentive to participate. Hopefully we never need this again, but being a Torah chanter or otherwise participating in the service does have its advantages, in addition to relief for Marilyn, who works hard to make sure, and Carol, who makes sure to make sure that all of those spots are filled. So be sure to join us for all of that, as we have many wonderful things going on, and we'll do our best to make it an enjoyable experience, even though we are not all together. All right. Well, I think that that brings it to the end. So let's do a closing number. Let's do an oldie but a goodie.
Oldie but a goodie.
Shalom Aleichem. It is on page 323. If you've got the book, it should be on the very next page if you are digital.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Did a little trill there.